Each October, the Secretary of State would spend a week or more at the United Nations in New York. It was like a trip overseas for us. We flew up, moved into a hotel, the United Nations Plaza Hotel, right across the street from the main UN building. And we were up on about the 50th or 55th floor, and we would take over 2 floors. And we would operate from there just as we would if we were in Portugal or Moscow or Beijing, wherever. The classified materials would be brought over from the U.S. mission to the United Nations, and the senior officers from the State Department would all be there. And the Secretary would conduct business, both UN business and regular business. Well, there was an incident in 1985 involving an American reporter in Moscow. He was a reporter for U.S. News and World Report, being detained by the Soviet authorities. And it was a big deal. It was a prominent American journalist, somebody the Secretary knew, and Secretary Shultz was very anxious to use his personal influence to deal with the situation. In order to do that, he had to speak to our ambassador in Moscow on a secure line. So secure phones were portable, and they worked off satellites. So you would have to send messages up to the satellites. They would go to Moscow, but they go encrypted. So we have devices. So the voice being spoken is encrypted before it's sent to the satellite. And to do this, and make sure that even if it's intercepted, it can't be understood by the Soviets, they had special recording device and transmitting device. So in the mid-'80s, this kind of equipment sometimes could be very reliable and other times could be more neuralgic. And so it's a terrible rainy day, clouds, difficulty meteorologically speaking, and the secretary's in his room, his office on the 55th floor of the United Nations Plaza, trying to speak in the secure phone, and it's all garbling and breaking up, and he's becoming frustrated, and it's a super important conversation. So the administrative officer of the executive secretariat, a wonderful man named Pat Kennedy, the young guy at the time, went on to become one of the most high-ranking and celebrated administrative professionals of the Foreign Service. So he and I are trying to figure out what to do. And so we've got a dish antenna, and getting the dish focused just right toward the satellite is critical. So it's raining out, we're in a hotel, and the windows are not really meant to be opened, but they can be opened. And so Pat's got this dish that's hooked by wires to the secretary's phone, and he's saying, "How is it, Mr. Secretary? Is it any better?" And as he gets it closer to the window, the secretary's, "No, I still can't hear, I can't hear." And so in this fateful moment, we open the window. And Pat Kennedy starts leaning out the window and holding it out in the rain, 55 stories above First Avenue in New York. And the secretary says, "Well, it's getting better, but I still can't hear." And so Pat Kennedy starts climbing and inching his way out the window. And I've got him by his feet, and I'm holding on to him for dear life. And he's there. "Is it any better, Mr. Secretary?" You know, a few more inches out. So now he's about in his waist, out over the street, holding this antenna. And the secretary, yes, now I can hear." And the conversation goes on. The message gets transmitted. Secretary says, "That's great, it's finished." We pull Pat Kennedy back into the room, shut the window. I said, you deserve the Executive Secretariat Medal of Bravery here for this. And he said, thanks for holding me so tight. But sometimes what you do to make sure American diplomacy can be carried out and the secure conversation that the Secretary of State needed to have took place, the backstories can be quite fascinating.